Hello, hey, howdy, hey, it's Mrs. Johnson with the Agri Wisdom Channel. We are doing videos about livestock basics. This is the co-partner, co. This is the twin, I guess, to the area math for the gardening basics 2.0, take two. Because my first gardening basics area math, I tried to do livestock and gardening all at the same time, and I felt like it was confusing. So, here I am the following week making them two separate videos. Um, so let's talk about it. How? Oh, I don't have a reason why we would do this. Why is area math in livestock super important? Well, it's important for land management and making sure that we have longevity in our land and making sure we're not putting like 1,000 cows, chickens, things on places that probably should only have like 100. Um, Making sure that when you buy bedding, you have enough bedding for each, um, enough bedding in your area to make to fill your entire barn. So there's not pieces of your barn that make your cows lame because it doesn't have enough padding, um, things like that. So, important for long-term care of your animals and also like basic care of your animals. That might not seem super important because you're just raising cows to eat, but or raising chickens to eat eggs. But cows live a long time. Uh, Chickens, when they're not happy, won't lay eggs. Things of that nature. So let's talk about it. How do we do livestock area measurement math? First, you're going to measure your area that you're trying to put things in. Specifically, today we're going to be talking about chickens. And then once you measure your area, write that down. You're going to find out the spacing that your livestock need per head. So, what does an individual chicken need based on all the fun livestock science that everyone has done before us? How many, and you can get super, super specific with that and like do measurements on your own land for that. But if you're just getting into it, Google it, try Google's recommendation. And then if you have issues, get a hold of like your local extension agent or local researchers and things, or hire a professional and see what happens. So, step one, measure farm spaces. Two, create an accurate map. Right? Um, like this picture, right? It doesn't have to be super, super artsy, but something that um you can kind of know where things are. The only thing that I don't like about this photo is that it doesn't have measurements on it. It looks to be fairly accurate based on, you know, the things, um, based on, the dwellings and things, but like the coop could have like a 20 by 30 measurement. Your barn could have like a 50 by 50 measurement if that's what it measures out to be. Um, in terms of like the grass and the herbs and the clover and the sunflowers and the nasturtiums, trees, bushes, those are things that when you're raising chickens or cows, you maybe don't have to measure super precisely, but it's nice to know that that's what's there. And then step two, once you've drawn your map, assign where your animals go in the map. Keep that for your records. Kind of like this photo. This photo again doesn't have measurements. But it does say horses go here, chickens go here, pigs go here, cows go here, goats, llamas, all the things. And then once you've picked spots for animals, measured those spots, and decided what animals are going there, calculate how many animals can go in that spot. Write this down, and then last but not least, raise your livestock. I will mention when you do livestock, you can kind of, or even when you're gardening, if you ever get to a point in this math calculation where you're like, oh no, I do not have the space for 80 head of cow like I want, try again. Just start all over and like remap things, reassign things, stuff like that. If you ever get to the point where you're like, oh wow, I don't need 80 chickens to give me a week's worth of eggs every week. I need like 20 chickens. Uh, you can you can plant more sparsely. I wouldn't put more in a space than that space can sustainably hold. But doing less in a big space, not necessarily a big deal. You're just using less resources across a bigger space, which is not always a bad thing. It's like morally neutral, not a bad thing to not use the land as much as it needs to be used or could be used. So let's start with our hypothetical chicken spacing. Now, first, foremost, calculate your square footage of the area that you're trying to put our hypothetical chickens in. In this case, we're going to use the same square that we did in the gardening basics area math. Um, 19 inches by 72 and a half inches. Uh, right. Uh, Square footage, length times width of squares and triangles. If you have circles, octagons, those things, try and break them up in squares because it's easier. But if you're going for like aesthetics and pretty stuff, just Google the square footage calculation, square area calculation. Um, but squares, rectangles, length times width. So 72 and a half times 19. Those are in inches. We're trying to go to square feet. So 72 and a half times 19, we'd multiply those together, which is why those are in parentheses. And then we divide all of that by 12 to put it back into feet because there's 12 inches in a foot. I will do a dimensional analysis video now that I'm talking about these things out loud and I'm taking the time to like accurately describe them, unlike my first take of this. So, right, 72 and a half times 19 in parentheses, divide by 12 is 114.8 feet squared, right? So that's our hypothetical chicken space for today, which, might not sound like a whole lot, but 19 inches is like 2.5 feet. 72 inches is like 6 feet, right? So in a foot and a half by 6 feet. How many chickens can we feasibly put on that? Let's find out the max amount of chickens that we could put on that, right? So we take that width times length measurement, our square area measurement, and we divide it by the space requirements of our animal. So our coop spacing, as we calculated before, is 114.8 feet squared. Google said that chickens, I think it was laying chickens, need 3 to 5 feet squared. And that 3 to 5 feet, that range comes from like how old are your chickens, what kind of chickens do you have, what are you feeding your chickens, all sorts of variables that we will hopefully talk about on this channel to make that 3 to 5 feet a little more concrete and less vague. So coop spacing divide by chicken spacing. So square footage divide by space requirements in square footage. Coop divided by chicken, basically. 114 divided by 3 is 48. 114.8 divided by 5 is 22. So that gives us our range. We can put anywhere between 22 and 48 chickens, ethically, according to Google, and this square, in this small little area, depending on all the other situations that we have. But ethically, sustainably, we should put no more than 48, and for like maximum yield, no less than 22 for maximum yield, but ethically no more than 48 because there's not enough space. Um, so that being said, let's hypothesize that this 114 feet is chicken coop and not like outside space. Right? Chicken coops are where chickens sleep and lay eggs, and they like to be cozy and all the things. So that means that they need bedding. They need something to sleep on. Which, as we talked about in a gardening video, is width times length times bedding depth. Width times length of area versus times bedding depth. So if our bed space, if we want to use this whole square rectangle, has our bedding, right? That's 114.8 feet. So we've knocked out the first two, the width times the length. And then our bedding depth, Google also said that chickens should have at least 3 inches of bedding in order to be happy chickens. And so we convert that 3 inches over to feet because we're working in feet, and that's what you do in order to stay in the same measurement. I will do dimensional analysis video, and we will talk about why it gets weird when you don't convert things. So 3 divided by 12 is 0.25 feet, right? So then we multiply everything together. 114 times 0.25 is 28.7 feet cubed, right? Because we're going in 3 directions. We're going width times length times depth. I unfortunately didn't add a video here, but you can kind of see it in this photo. Width times length and then depth. Depth this way, width, and then depth. No, depth, up, down, width, left, right, and then length, front to back, essentially. Now, we're going to convert that over to cubic yards because bedding, like soil, as we talked about in the gardening video, is often sold in cubic yards and not cubic feet. So if you bring this in and you're like, hello, I need 28 cubic feet of bedding, your feed store, your hardware store, wherever you buy your bedding, it just might be like, actually, what? So you divide your cubic feet by 27 to get cubic yards. 28.7 divided by 27 is 1.6 cubic yards. Uh, and depending on how well you take care of your chickens, how often you're changing your bedding, uh, what kind of chickens you have, you might be able to get away with 1 cubic yard. But as I mentioned in the gardening video, I will always recommend that you go higher and you go all the way up to 2, because it's always worth it to have extra bedding. It's always worth it to have extra soil. When it comes to things that take care of the things that you're trying to grow, um, for food, for profit, for all the things, it is always worth it to have a little extra wiggle room when it comes to things that take care of the things that you're growing. And it might not seem super worth it. I mean, if you're trying to make a profit, there is definitely a hard line of like what is economically feasible. And we can kind of talk about that because the economics often come into a lot of these, like how many heads per square acre, how many heads per square feet conversation. So economics dimensional analysis sounds like a good video for me to jump on. But without further ado, we're going to jump into questions. If you need more examples, want clarity, if you're confused on something, drop it in the comments. Hopefully this retake was helpful. Yeah. Try and do some measurements on your own. If you'd like me to go over like basic care requirements, bedding depth, soil requirements, livestock, spacing per acre square footage, I can do that. Just let me know and I will be here. So just recording videos on Thursday. So yeah, let me know. And thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely day and we will see you soon.